Our culture is in trouble when its very leaders identify foundational principles as dangerous and un-American. How can a society survive when its bedrock is attacked? We live in strange days and dangerous times, and only the scriptures can help us navigate our way to Christ and to heaven. Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to Something's Happening Here. I'm Steve Hicks. Welcome back, friends, and as I said, it is Tuesday if you're watching it in real time as it's broadcast, and thank you for continuing your week with us. Before we begin today, I just want to kind of explain the relationship between Something's Happening Here and Talking Donkey International. I've mentioned it a few times, but I've never really explained it. Talking Donkey is a media company, and it produces a number of programs other than just this one. So Something's Happening Here is a production of Talking Donkey International. The reason that I mention it is because we are in need of some funds, and we have been asking for donations, particularly on Facebook. You'll see fundraising opportunities there. But we're raising funds for Talking Donkey International, not for Something's Happening Here. So if you choose to donate, and God bless you if you do, because we have bills that need to be paid, don't be afraid to donate to Talking Donkey International. That is our parent company, and your funds will directly support the production of this show. So let's begin. We are continuing our discussion about the family and its controversies and the attack that it's under. And today, we're going to look at an incident that happened in South Dakota, of all places. And that really shocked me that it was South Dakota. But there was a lawmaker there, a representative there, a congressperson there, who took offense to something family related. And let's just go to it. This article that I'm reading from, it says it identifies the political party of the lawmaker, and I'm not going to repeat it on air because this is not that kind of a show, but you do have it maybe on screen right now and certainly underneath the program if you want to look into it. But this lawmaker erupts over advocacy group promoting families with, quote, married mom and dad. And that lawmaker says it is dangerous and un-American. So we often point out editorial choices on Something's Happening Here, and this is one of them. There is no specific journalistic reason to begin the headline by calling out the political party of the person responsible, except that the media outlet that published it doesn't like that particular political party. And so even if you agree with the substance of the article, you have to stop and recognize that this media outlet is manipulating you just like a different one that you don't like would manipulate you. There's media manipulation all over the place. In any case, the article says this South Dakota congresswoman, and her name is Representative Erin Healy, took to Twitter on Monday to criticize the Family Heritage Alliance, calling the group, quote, extremist for promoting the idea that a child benefits from the support of a married mother and father. She tweeted, extremist group Family Heritage Alliance said this morning that the safest place for kids are in families that have a married mom and dad. What a dangerous and un-American belief. And I have on my screen the actual tweet, so the producer probably has it on your screen as well. Man, goodness, where do you even start with a tweet like this? I guess I'll start by reading the Family Heritage Alliance's words itself, right? Does it sound extreme to you that this group states on its website regarding marriage and family that the marriage of a man and a woman and their ability to raise their children is foundational to the strength of a nation? We believe that strengthening our families, defending parental rights, and defending a natural definition of marriage are critical to achieving a strong and healthy nation. Okay. Actually, I should read one more paragraph from this article here because this is not just copy from their website. This is actually in response to Representative Healy. Representative Healy has completely disregarded what we know to be true about children and families, Family Heritage Alliance told Fox News Digital. Growing up in the home of a married biological mother and father is the single largest predictor of success later in life. It's highly ironic that she describes a well-known fact about child safety as dangerous and un-American. Okay, so I believe in my heart that Family Heritage Alliance is speaking the truth, and that growing up in a home with a married biological mother and father is in fact the greatest predictor of success later in life. That this paradigm is foundational to the strength of a nation. I believe all of that. But I don't know it to be true, statistically speaking. It probably is. I certainly believe it is, but this article does not go into the data to support it. They're just kind of claiming it to be true. So it's worthwhile to kind of explore this miasma of controversy a little bit. I suspect that the reason that Representative Healy is so upset is because she also believes that children can be properly raised in, let's say, a same-sex household with two moms or two dads. She's coming from a place of saying that there's nothing inherently better about a mom and a dad. There's nothing inherently worse about a single mom, a single dad, two moms, two dads, whatever, right? Whatever other flavor of family that you can come up with. Okay, so what do you think, friends? I'll tell you what I think. I think that it is entirely possible for a person, a child, to grow up in one of these alternative family structures and turn out okay. Probably. It's unlikely that such a child will be raised in the fear and knowledge of the Lord. But I'm not saying it's impossible. People are infinitely diverse, right? And so to say something is always or never something is always wrong, right? The linguistic fans out there are probably going to love taking apart that sentence I just said. But it's true, there's nothing in life that is always or never something. There are always exceptions, and there are always, alternatives that you can see, and that's actually part of why modern life is so confusing. We've looked at the outliers, we've looked at the exceptions, and we've called them the norm. And so now we don't have the norm and a whole bunch of exceptions that we need to tolerate. Now we just have a gazillion different divergent norms. And how do you build a coherent society that way? Anyway, back to the actual question. My own childhood was full of divorce and alternative family situations. I wish that were not the case, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I did not receive damage from that, because I most certainly did. That being said, here I am. I love the Lord with all my heart. I am married to a woman that I've been connected to romantically for more than 20 years. We have two amazing kids that I love. More or less, things worked out okay for me. So am I going to just blanketly condemn every alternative form of family? No, of course not. If the choice is to have no family at all or to have an alternative family, you pick the alternative family, because a family structure is better than no family structure. You're not going to convince me otherwise, really. But that being said, are we really willing to call all of those exceptions equal to the standard norm? Is it truly equal for a child to grow up in any one of these flavors of family? I don't think so. I just don't think so. So let's go to the Bible and see why. Well, first of all, Genesis 1 does in fact point out that God made mankind as male and female. That's in Genesis 1 verse 27. And then Genesis 2, as we looked at yesterday, marries them together in a sexual relationship for the purpose of creating children and perpetuating the species. So that's God's model. That's the sinless model, and any other model than that is because of sin, ultimately. It doesn't mean that it's, going to produce bad results automatically, but it does mean that it would not exist in a sinless world. And so we have to start from there. We have to recognize that this non-biblical deviation is a result of sin. So a believing Christian wants to get as far away from sin as possible and as close to the Garden of Eden paradigm as possible. And so that's why this always is such a problem within Christian circles, because we want the biblical model and the world hates the biblical model. But it's so suicidal and self-destructive to hate the biblical model, because all of Western civilization is built on this biblical model of marriage. I'm going to take you into the Bible here, in the book of 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 3, we're describing the requirements for being a bishop, which is an overseer, or depending on the denomination you belong to, this title would be called something different, right? In my particular denominational system, we call them elders. But the presbyters in the Presbyterian system would be the equivalent. The bishops in the Catholic system would be the equivalent. They're the overseers of the church. And in chapter 3, verse 2, we are told that a bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission with all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how will he take care of the church of God? And so in that little description, we see actually 2 references to family. He's supposed to be married, and to one wife, not many. That's a reflection on the reality of that culture at the time, when many wives was a normal thing. So you have one wife, because that is the Garden of Eden biblical model. So one wife with children and a properly functioning household. As you may know, historically speaking, the church ran all of Europe for more than 1,000 years. And so every foundational idea that Europe has, which became all the ideas that America has, which at least since World War II have become the ideas of the world, it's all based on that, right? That the overseers, the responsible people, are the monogamously married parents of children. Furthermore, in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the entire chapter is dedicated to how awesome marriage is. And there's something I like to point out here, because in verse 5, verses 5 and 6, the author Paul says something that is frequently interpreted one way, but I actually firmly believe its true interpretation is the opposite way. So the Bible says, and this is talking about sex between husband and wife. The Bible says, "Do not deprive one another except with consent for a time, that you may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. But I say this as a concession, not as a commandment." And so since Paul was kind of decidedly celibate and unmarried, most people read those 2 verses, and even though verse 5 is quite clearly saying, you really need to have sex, and frequently, because when you don't, then the devil gets in there and messes it all up. But then they read verse 6, and they're saying, yeah, but having sex between marriage is like a concession. Paul wishes you'd be celibate like him. And so they ultimately interpret this as a negative against a sexual marriage. I don't think so. I think what he's saying here, the concession that he's giving, is every once in a while you need to take a break, because you need to dedicate yourselves to fasting and prayer. But because that's only a concession and not a doctrine, it has to come to an end, and when it comes to an end, come together again, so Satan does not get a foothold in your marriage. I firmly believe that's what Paul is actually saying here. I can make a bigger argument that stretches over several chapters if we must, but again, my point is this idea, this kind of foundational idea of a sexual marriage leading to the parenting of children is the church would not exist without it, and Europe would not exist without the church, and America would not exist without Europe, and Western civilization would not exist without America. And so if you just kind of follow that trail backwards, everything that you know, everything you believe, everything you grew up with, everything you value as true in your society ultimately comes from that marriage unit. No wonder the devil hates it. So, can our society survive when our very leaders are condemning the thing that formed our society in the first place? It doesn't seem very optimistic, does it? Luckily for us, we have 3 more days to discuss this and reach more happy conclusions. So make sure you're subscribed so you can come back tomorrow as we continue this discussion. Like the Facebook page, change your notifications so you're alerted when we publish. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified. Hit the follow button on Rumble. Become a subscriber on Locals. We don't have a paid version yet, but we will soon. And on Talking Donkey International, go to the podcast page and bookmark it. And when you do one or all of these things, I will be sure to see you tomorrow as we continue our discussion about the family. May God bless you. I'm Steve Hicks.